A broken-hearted man named Wes is driving aimlessly down the road. Wes seems to be harshly affected by the fact that his relationship with Brenda has just ended. Shortly after, Wes decides to park his car in a nearby park. At that park, a strange woman stares at Wes, but he pays no attention to her. Wes then goes to a vending machine to grab a snack. However, the machine is broken, and Wes's snack is stuck inside. While Wes struggles to get his snack, the strange woman offers to help him. After helping Wes get his snack, the woman stares at Wes's car for a while. She tells Wes to clean off his backseat if he plans to live on the street. Hearing that, Wes only nods to her before they part ways. Wes then goes back to his car and laments about Brenda while eating his snack. In confusion, Wes screams at the top of his lungs and decides to give Brenda a call. However, Brenda doesn't pick it up, and Wes's phone runs out of battery. He becomes enraged and throws the phone away. When Wes picks up the phone again, he finds that the phone screen is now broken. Wes rushes back to his car and chugs on a bottle of liquor. He grabs a bunch of women's clothes from his backseat and puts them at a nearby fireplace. Later at night, the drunk Wes burns Brenda's clothes while drinking from his bottle. Wes then grabs a red box filled with Polaroid photos inside. He burns all the pictures but keeps one of Brenda's photos in his pocket. Shortly after pouring the last drop of his liquor, Wes falls to the ground unconsciously. The following morning, Wes wakes up and has a hangover. Luckily, there is a restroom nearby, so Wes rushes there. He spends the morning throwing up at the toilet and doesn't realize that Brenda's photo slipped from his pocket. After a while, a man's voice from a nearby toilet stall asks Wes if he is okay. When Wes turns his head, he notices a weird image painted on the toilet wall. Wes then tells the mysterious man that he is okay and apologizes for interrupting him. The mysterious man keeps trying to converse with Wes, but Wes isn't keen on doing that. However, their small talk continues as Wes looks for toilet paper around the building. After talking for quite some time, the man states that they haven't introduced themselves. As Wes says his name to the man, he gets curious and peeks into the man's toilet stall. But then, the man demands Wes return to his toilet stall so they can continue talking. Hearing that, Wes refuses even after the man tries to trigger Wes's curiosity. Wes says he doesn't want to talk with a random person hiding inside a toilet. In response, the man tells Wes that he can't do anything about it as some things are beyond his control. After wishing the man good luck with whatever he is doing, Wes decides to leave the restroom. However, Wes realizes that Brenda's photo is missing from his pocket. Because of that, Wes spends more time inside the toilet looking for Brenda's photo. At the same time, the mysterious man asks Wes if he wants to know his name. Wes responds positively, and the man instructs Wes to do something before pronouncing his name. The man tells Wes to stick out his tongue and put his finger on the tip. Even though Wes finds it a peculiar instruction, he decides to do it nonetheless. Upon following the instructions, Wes learns that the man's name is Gatanodoa. Gatanodoa then explains that his name is the name of a lonely ancient god. At first, Wes thought that Gatanodoa was named after the said god. However, Gatanodoa tells him that he is that ancient god. After hearing such unbelievable statements, Wes takes Gatanodoa's words as a mere joke. Wes expresses his disbelief that Gatanodoa is an ancient god that lives inside a toilet stall with a glory hole next to its wall. As Gatanodoa tries to convince Wes of his godhood, Wes finds Brenda's photo on the floor. At that moment, Wes also decides to peek at the glory hole to see Gatanodoa on the other side. But then, Gatanodoa scolds Wes for attempting to see his form. The warning doesn't mean anything to Wes as he climbs onto the toilet seat to peek at Gatanodoa. Because of that, Gatanodoa exerts his power and lets out a deafening scream to push Wes away. As Wes lies on the floor, his surroundings suddenly change, and he finds himself outside the restroom. Wes then rushes back to his car and finds Brenda waiting for him. However, Brenda suddenly transforms into a terrifying form which scares Wes. Shortly after, Wes wakes up from the illusion and finds himself back in the restroom with Gatanodoa. Afterwards, Wes blames Gatanodoa and thinks he injected Wes with some chemicals last night. However, Gatanodoa insists that it was Wes's punishment for trying to peek at him. When Gatanodoa mentions Brenda, Wes gets annoyed and rants at the ancient god. Wes tells Gatanodoa that he doesn't know anything about him. But then, Gatanodoa exerts his omniscient ability by revealing some truth to Wes. As Wes denies everything Gatanodoa says, he rushes to the restroom door to leave. Unfortunately, the door is locked, and Wes is now trapped inside. Gatanodoa tells Wes that he can't leave until they finish their conversation. In a panic, Wes vents his anger to Gatanodoa while trying to force open the door. When Wes reaches an air vent to scream for help, Gatanodoa uses his power to form a barrier outside the restroom. Gatanodoa then tells Wes it is his fate to be in this place. In desperation, Wes tries to convince himself that this is a vivid dream and that he is still unconscious in the parking lot. However, Gatanodoa forces Wes to return to his senses and realize his reality. When Wes stares at a nearby mirror, he catches a glimpse of Gatanodoa's form in the reflection. Realizing that Gatanodoa is truly not human, Wes rushes to reach the air vent but fails. Gata Nodoa then asks Wes to return to the toilet stall to finish what they had begun. Wes asks if Gata Nodoa will let him leave if he obeys the ancient god's request. However, Gata Nodoa can't promise that yet and tells Wes he has no choice. After that, Gata Nodoa reminds Wes not to attempt to look at his form ever again. He explains to Wes that the consequence will result in Wes losing his humanity and becoming a monster. While hearing Gata Nodoa's warning, Wes searches for an alternative way to escape. Wes finds another air vent below the sink and tries to open it. At the same time, Wes continues talking with Gata Nodoa to avoid Gata Nodoa's suspicion. When Gata Nodoa explains the reason behind their meeting, Wes uses the chance to crawl onto the air vent. But unfortunately, Wes ends up returning to the same room he tries to escape. Wes also realizes that Gata Nodoa now seals the air vent to prevent him from escaping. However, Wes notices that the purple light from Gata Nodoa's power is gone, and he asks the ancient god about it. Gata Nodoa explains that his power is waning, and he needs to conserve it to conceal their presence. After that, Wes asks what Gata Nodoa wants from him. Gata Nodoa tells Wes that the universe is asking him a favor that only Wes can do. Hearing that, Wes becomes agitated and expresses his anger. Wes blames the universe for making his life miserable, yet asks him for a favor this time. Hearing that, Gata Nodoa tells Wes to stop blaming the universe and takes responsibility for his actions. As Wes tries to deny Gata Nodoa's statement, an image of Brenda appears in Wes's mind. Wes tries to hide inside his memory of Brenda, but Gata Nodoa asks him to stop and focus on their conversation. As a result, Gata Nodoa invades Wes's mind to force him out of his hiding. Eventually, Gata Nodoa uses his power, causing blood to drip from Wes's ears. Gata Nodoa apologizes for hurting Wes, but he asks Wes to obey him. After that, Gata Nodoa tells a story about a primordial force which lives in infinite nothingness. One time, the primordial force found the power to create a physical form with its thoughts and feelings. However, this results in the birth of countless new beings that soon fill the void of emptiness. These new beings become unwanted children of the primordial force, so it seeks to destroy them all. In a great war between those beings, the blood of the primordial force ends up creating the universe of stars, planets, and life. Ultimately, the primordial force begs its children to close its wound to prevent more life formed from its blood. The children agree, but the primordial force has to leave the universe alone. Their father agrees, but the being's hatred toward life in the universe grows even more. As a result, the primordial force secretly created another child that is filled with destruction power to undo all life in the universe. Ultimately, Gata Nodoa reveals that he is the secret weapon that his father created to end the world. However, Gata Nodoa's siblings soon learn about that and wage war to seal their father in the deepest ocean. After sealing their father, Gata Nodoa's siblings hid him in the ether out of their father's reach. However, something happens that forces Gata Nodoa to end up in this restroom. Gata Nodoa explains that he has used his power to conceal his presence from his father. When Wes asks why the god of destruction does all this, Gata Nodoa explains that he is fond of life and humanity. But now that Gata Nodoa's power is fading, he can no longer hide from his father. If Gata Nodoa's father finds him, he has no choice but to fulfill the goal of his creation. Because of that, Gata Nodoa needs Wes's help to prevent the destruction of this universe. Gata Nodoa demands Wes satisfy his physical desire, and only Wes can do that. When Wes stares at the glory hole filled with Gata Nodoa's sticky liquid, the sound of a car outside catches Wes's attention. Wes then screams to get the attention of a property supervisor named Gary, who has just arrived at the park. Luckily, Gary hears Wes's scream and walks to the locked door. As Gata Nodoa warns Wes not to do that, Wes ignores the warning and rushes to the door. Wes then demands Gata Nodoa open the door and the ancient god fulfills Wes's request. Unfortunately, Gary prevents Wes from escaping the room and the door is now locked again. When Gary blames Wes for locking the door, Gata Nodoa announces his presence to Gary. The situation becomes tense as Gary threatens to call the police. When Wes asks Gata Nodoa to free him and talk with Gary instead, the ancient god refuses Wes's request. Now that Gary's presence might interfere with Gata Nodoa's goal, he decides to get rid of Gary. Gata Nodoa orders Wes to hide inside a toilet stall while he takes care of Gary. Before the horror begins, Wes puts Brenda's photo on the wall to soothe him. As Gata Nodoa devours Gary, the room begins shaking along with the echo of Gary's scream. At the same time, the shaking causes Brenda's photo to drop on the floor. Wes screams in horror and begs Gata Nodoa to stop. Shortly after, Gary's red liquid rains inside the room along with his remains. When Wes is about to grab Brenda's photo, Gata Nodoa uses Gary's red liquid to wash it away. The event triggers Wes's flashback as Wes remembers his first meeting with Brenda. When Wes returns to his senses, he exits the toilet stall and finds the mess caused by Gata Nodoa. After picking back Brenda's photo, Wes asks Gata Nodoa to tell him what he needs to do. In response, Gata Nodoa says that Wes has to satisfy his physical form. As Gata Nodoa's glory hole shines in gold, Wes convinces himself to do what needs to be done. However, Wes tries to break open the door first before entering Gata Nodoa's hole. After failing to break the door open, Wes makes up his mind to do what Gata Nodoa wants from him. Wes then put his fun-sized sausage into the glory hole for Gata Nodoa. However, Gata Nodoa expresses his disgust after seeing what Wes put into the hole. In confusion, Wes asks Gata Nodoa to tell him what he needs for the ritual specifically. Gata Nodoa then tells Wes that he needs a piece of Wes's liver, and Wes has to offer it to him willingly. Realizing that Gata Nodoa wants Wes to cut himself open, Wes expresses his disagreement about doing it. They then argue about Wes's selfishness to put the entire universe at risk. Afterwards, Wes forces Gata Nodoa to listen to his story if he wants Wes's liver. Wes recounts his childhood trauma of living under his abusive father. When Wes's mother ends her own life, his father blames her instead of feeling remorse. While Wes argues not to sacrifice himself for people like his father, a dimension space begins forming on the restroom wall. Gata Nodoa tells Wes that his father is close and they are running out of time. When Wes is lamenting about Brenda and how he is disappointed in her, Gata Nodoa reminds him that Brenda truly loves Wes. However, Gata Nodoa also states how Wes broke Brenda's heart, resulting in his current circumstance. Annoyed by Gata Nodoa's words, Wes walks to the glory hole and screams profanely at that ancient god. As a result, Gata Nodoa punishes Wes by putting him into a painful illusion. Wes slowly descends into insanity as his mind and body can't keep up with the pressure he feels. When Gata Nodoa demands Wes finish the ritual, Wes screams to alert Gata Nodoa's father of their location. Ultimately, Wes's action results in an enormous reality rift. As the primordial force tries to pull Wes and Gata Nodoa into the void, Wes crawls back into his toilet stall. Gata Nodoa tells Wes that this is their last chance. Gata Nodoa also tells Wes that his memory of Brenda will vanish if the primordial force ends the world. Gata Nodoa then takes away all of Wes's memories of Brenda to show him what it feels like if the world ended. When Wes grabs Brenda's photo from his pocket, it turns blank. Wes begs Gata Nodoa to let him see Brenda one more time in exchange for giving what he demands from Wes. When Gata Nodoa returns Wes's memories of Brenda, Wes recalls the moment he spent with her. After reassuring his feelings for Brenda, Wes grabs the piece of glass next to him. Before Gata Nodoa's father enters reality, Wes sacrifices himself to get his liver for Gata Nodoa. In a flashback, Wes recounts when Brenda finds Wes's red box, which contains photos of Wes's victims. When Brenda learns about what Wes did to those women, Wes has no choice but to end her. Meanwhile, in the present, Gata Nodoa manages to get Wes's liver and use it to restore his power. As Wes lies on the floor, Gata Nodoa reveals his true form to Wes. In the end, Wes wakes up in a completely normal restroom. Wes tells himself that he has saved the universe from total annihilation by sacrificing his liver. When Wes hails himself as a hero, Gata Nodoa tells him they are no heroes. The two of them are a being of pure destruction and are better left forgotten. When Wes leaves the restroom in pain, he grabs the doll Brenda gave her. Ultimately, Wes passes away on the ground with all the sins he committed. What do you think of this movie? Write your comments below. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like and comment to help the channel. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.